Hello everyone, it is digital host AJ Wiest welcoming you all back to the 48 Now desk. Today I am joined with Mr. Shawn Dalrymple. He is the CEO of the ArmyBassAnglers, and it's a very fitting weekend for this because the Tennessee Valley Hunting and Fishing Expo is at the VBC South Hall all weekend. But Shawn, thank you so much for joining in with me today.
Well, I appreciate you having me. It's great for me because I'm originally from Huntsville, so I get to come home to do this show, and I get to visit my mom and get to see people I know. And I do these all around the country, but this one's kind of special to come home and be part of this one back in my hometown. So
absolutely. And you grew up here, you went out to Kentucky, and now you're back. How does it feel to be back?
I get to come back every now and then. I love Huntsville. I get asked. I was in the military 22 years, and I tell people it's one of the best kept secrets there are. And everybody that ever gets stationed here, they never want to leave. I just retired. My wife is up there in Kentucky, so we're there. For what we do right now, and with our kids. And so, but I love coming home to Huntsville, and you have one of the best kept secrets in the United States right here, from what we have here at Redstone Arsenal to all the jobs to the school system, and then the natural resources with the Tennessee River is just phenomenal in itself. There's not a place I don't visit, place around the country that want to ask me about Lake Guntersville or Wheeler Wilson or Pickwick. Those places are just phenomenal places to fish. So.
That's right. Yes, sir. First, can you talk a little bit about your time in the Army? I know you just mentioned you recently retired.
Yeah, so I spent 22 years in the Army. I was a senior in college when 9/11 happened.
Wow.
So I was already going to be commissioned as second lieutenant, knew that in my life. In a matter of moments changed to know that I was going from peacetime Army to I would be going to combat. And I was 23 years old, leading troops downrange the first time I ever got shot at.
Right.
And so you grow up really, really fast. And I actually, it paved the way for what I'm getting to do now. It's been great. I got to do a lot of cool stuff in the Army. I pulled a lot of high-level missions. In fact, there's a book called Craig Whitlock's in the Afghan Papers.
Okay.
That there's 2 pages in that book that's dedicated to stuff that I did in Afghanistan. So I'm the actual company commander that rescued the current president of the United States out of Afghanistan and prevented then Vice President Cheney an assassination attempt on his life. And so I got to do some really cool things in the 82nd Airborne Division, and it's set up for what I do now. I get asked a lot by high school kids and stuff how I get to do what I do in the outdoor industry. The Army is a really cool place. The military in general, it gives you a lot of opportunities. And I did all that, and I came back and they said, hey, we're going to give you an option. You can do one or two things. You can go back to combat or you can go back to full-time grad school. Which one would you like to do? And I said, I'll go to full-time grad school.
Right.
and that's how I got started in all this, was because my career in the Army. And I went to the University of North Alabama, back where I got my undergraduate degree, and college fishing was just starting to take off. And so I was able to go in there and help build, coach, and build the powerhouse of college fishing at the University of North Alabama in the early stages, and meet a lot of the people in the outdoor industry, which led me, I would never, if it weren't for my military career, I'd have never been in that position to get to meet those introductions. And I talk to kids that, I want to work in the outdoor industry. And I always tell people, if it hadn't been for my 22-year career in the military, wouldn't be able to do what I do right now. And so that's how my military career is how I got to where I'm at in the outdoor industry. And it's led me to what I do now. It was a great time. I enjoyed it. It's an awesome experience.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. And thank you so much for your service. So I take it was after your military career, that's when you went to grad school at UNA?
No, I was actually still on active duty. I was an active duty captain. I was full-time active duty captain, so they have a program that says you can go, they advance your degree because they take it and broaden your perspective as an officer. And so I went and got my master's degree while I was still on active duty. And then you basically are a student just like everybody else. But you're in grad school, and then you go do that for 2 years, and then you come back to the Army, and you continue to serve in a normal job, and you've been what they consider broadening your experiences is to go and do that. So it was really cool experience to go to grad school. It was even cooler to get to do the fishing thing while I was there and the lead. So yeah, I came back to the Army after I did grad what we call the real Army after I did grad school, and continued to. I went to the 101st Airborne Division for 4 years after that, and spent 4 I was very blessed. So I get to tell people all the time, I got to serve in the 82nd Airborne Division and the 101st Airborne Division, two of the most historic units for the Army, and most individuals in the Army hope to ever just get to serve in one of those. Wow. And I was very blessed to get to serve the history, the things that went on in those units in World War II, to get to meet some of the greatest generations, the stories that I got to hear as young lieutenant of all those guys when they would come back in was just totally a cool experience to be able to listen to some of that and to have that legacy kind of passed on to me.
Wow. I can imagine. So would you be willing to share some of the experiences from back then, or some of your favorite memories?
Well, I always tell this, so this is my favorite. So we have what was called All-American Week in the 82nd, and back then, the young lieutenant, most of the guys from World War II were still late 70s, early, so they were still pretty, knowledgeable and mobile and everything else, and they would come in for homecoming week, for All-American Week, and loved getting to talk to them. And really cool stories, but it was always cool because the deal about being 82nd, you jump out of airplanes. I mean, that's what we do, right?
That's awesome.
And that's D-Day, the 82nd. I mean, I got to serve with the French Foreign Legion, whose commander was from St. Mary, Greece, the first French city that was liberated on D-Day, and he just thought it was so that's the heritage that's there, right? So those old timers would come back in, and they'd walk up to these young privates, and they would ask them, they'd be like, hey son, how many jumps do you got? And private would be like, I only got 10 or 12. And he'd be like, that's pretty good. I only got 5. And the private's head would start swelling up about that big. And the World War II old timer would go, yeah, Sicily, Nijmegen, Holland, Market Garden, all the 5 combat jumps the 82nd made into World War II. They were combat combat jumps, and you see this private's head just totally get burst and like in complete awe. Like when you ask him like how many jumps, he had 5 real combat jumps into World War II, and you're just sitting there going, I mean, these guys were the real deal. I mean, the knowledge to get to experience, and you just kind of understand that. And that was what was so special about being in those places. And as a leader, I kind of took that to heart, that you had a legacy. The people that wore that uniform, that wore that AA patch before you, that wore that Screaming Eagle before you did, you had to live up to it. And what that, we always talked about being a 3-time volunteer to be there. You had to volunteer for jump school, you had to volunteer to be in the Army, and you had to volunteer to go to the 82nd Airborne Division. And you get a very special paratrooper as part of that. And that legacy goes all the way back to what we refer to as the little groups of paratroopers, which is what took place on D-Day with the little 2- and 3-man groups of paratroopers that caused so much havoc in Normandy to prevent the reinforcements from reinforcing the beachheads. And you really feel that, and you get to talk to those guys and then carry that legacy on. And I saw that. We did that with what we did with our deployments and things of that nature. So it was really, really a cool experience. I mean, to be there. So experience it and live it and tell it. And I'm thankful to all my guys that served with me and for me. And it was, get to command a company in the 82nd Airborne Division was a blessing in itself.
Yeah, so. I'd imagine so. And like, you feel like you're living through history there.
You do. You don't really realize it until you're almost through it. I mean, it doesn't kind of set into your later in your perspective of like, this is history, this is historical. The way we think about things, the way we looked at our grandfathers, our fathers or grandfathers, and I think about like, and then you start realizing that you're making history, you're doing things, you know, that's why the military, where it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, we're part of the 1%. You know, and we're doing something that not everybody can go out there and do, and you realize that you're doing something very extraordinary. And for us, it's just a job. We go out there and do it because that's what we enjoy to do. It's a calling, and it's more than we can ever tell people and help people to understand. We're doing what we've always been born to do.
That's right. And you mentioned that you were a lieutenant colonel. What makes for a great lieutenant colonel, would you say?
Well, first of all, it starts with when you're still a cadet and and then when you become a lieutenant, having good non-commissioned officers who teach you and train you, and you listen to them and learn from them. I mean, that really sets the tempo and the tone of how your career is going to go. The things that I did when I got to be a lieutenant colonel were because I was very blessed. When I was a senior in college, my senior ROTC instructor was a primary jump master for the Ranger Battalion jumping into Panama for a Ranger Regiment. Wow. And so to learn from him, to learn what a lieutenant was supposed to do, to learn what a good leader was supposed to do, that's what makes it. It's not thinking that you have all the right answers. Because I always tell this story. I talked about I was 23 years old the first time I got shot at. And you come to a knee, and there's my 3 squad leaders and my platoon sergeant. And my platoon sergeant looked at me, and everybody in that half semicircle were all older than I was. And he said, "Sir, what do you want to do? This is where you get paid the big bucks." And so it's because you listen to them and all those other situations, and you've learned from them. You learn what to do, what not to do, learn when it's appropriate to take the right risk, when it's not appropriate. The biggest thing, being a successful lieutenant colonel, is putting people first. If you put people first, everything else takes care of itself.
That's right. Being selfless.
Selfless, yeah, taking care of other people out there. That's what separates the great leaders out there. Part of it, early on, while I was towards my end of my military career, I've been part of ArmyBassAnglers. So since early on in its starting, we were the longest running all military TV show in the outdoor industry on the Sportsman's Channel. Been for 13 seasons, and so as I was kind of heading in this direction toward the end of my military career, I ended up winning the actual show twice. And so that just became my deal. And so as we evolved the fishing side at ArmyBassAnglers, we started a hunting side. And so it just seemed fitting that was the direction I want to go. And I got the opportunity, as I got closer to retirement, as an opportunity to buy the company and the TV shows to take it to the kind of the next level. And the Army has the great program that basically it's almost like an internship. If you know kind of what you want to do, your last 6 months and you're in active duty, you can take that transition period to kind of intern. And I was able to basically do almost an internship prior to buying the company to be able to set up to be successful for a sort of transition. I tell people all the time, no matter what you do in life, at some point everything's going to come to an end. So you got to have a smooth transition to transition from being on active duty to what I do in civilian. So now we took, I own 4 television shows in the outdoor space. We cover saltwater, freshwater, whitetail hunting, hog hunting, which is becoming an invasive problem across the United States. Even here in Alabama, it's a problem. Basically, once you start to get in the Mississippi River down south, it becomes an issue. Georgia, Mississippi, they all face those issues with them. And so part of it is be really, really cool to be a part of that. But the biggest thing what we do with the television show, is I tell this, is we get to tell the stories that nobody else can tell.
That's right. And
I always tell this story. One of my favorite stories from our bass fishing show is one of our guys, Don Brunson. He tells a story about going into Iraq in 2003. And they didn't get to take a shower for probably 4 or 5 weeks. Wow. And so when he finally got to take a shower, he got his duffel bag for the first time, and he opened up his duffel bag, and then there was a crumpled up letter that his wife had wrote and stuck in that duffel bag before he left. And it was a letter that he had that she wrote how much she loved him and how much she couldn't wait till he'd come back home. And he still had that letter 15 years later.
Wow.
And we can only tell that story, and we could not catch a fish or do what we do in the hunting side of the house. And to tell that story is what we want to kind of open up and give the American people kind of a little bit a glimpse of what it's like to be a service member, you know, because there is a human side to it.
That's right.
Not just for us, but for our family too. Like this year on the TV show, we told what it was like to be, felt like the first time you really felt like we left home. And one of our individuals told about, from the spouse's perspective, that he married his wife. She was 19 years old, and she's from a little small town outside of Memphis, and she flies to Japan to meet him. Never been away from home.
Wow.
Ever in her life. And so that part of the stories that we get to tell, and to bring it all in with a love and connection for the outdoors that we do is pretty huge. And so that's allowed us to do a lot of great work with Folds of Honor, which does a great deal with Gold Star and disabled veterans and first responders, making sure they can go on and go to college. We've been responsible for about $500,000 going to that organization over the last 5 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so that's really a big part of what we do. The TV show allows us to do that with all the events and expos, a lot like what we're here this weekend doing. That's a lot of what we'll do. And, you know, from all our major partners, it allows us to do that. And that camaraderie and connection, because the biggest thing with the organization or their members, if you ask me, we took away everything that we do, is when you get out of the military, is that camaraderie and connection that you have that you miss with like-minded people, and it allows people to come together and connect.
That's right.
So,
and I'd imagine the Army Bass Anglers, super tight-knit community.
It is. It's very, very tight. You know, it's so funny because when we meet new people, new members, it's funny how we either serve together at some point or we serve with someone who they served with, and we're so closely connected it's not even funny, and we go, you know, that tight-knit group. The other thing you find is what I really is kind of overwhelming for me sometimes to understand was in the community, just in the fishing community in itself, and it was the way that we were looked at amongst the big names in the industry, and it took me a long time to understand this. And people look at us, those guys would look at us like in complete awe, and we couldn't understand it, why. And then I came back to realize because of what we did, they get to go chase a little green fish, and they're in complete awe because they never could go do what we did. And so they're completely humbled of what we did, because now we do fishing and what we did. And so they look at us in complete awe, even though we look at them as like some of the superstars of the sport.
Wow.
And so to sit there and to be treated in that same respect to those not just with those guys, but those guys are the ones that are treating us that way, that they're like they're so humbled to even feel like to be in the same presence that we are. It makes us really, we don't understand that because we're just out doing a job for us. That's what we were called to do.
That's right.
So
I'd imagine that would be a surreal moment for you guys. But can you talk a little bit about this event that's happening at the VBC this weekend? What can people who are watching at home right now, what can they expect to see there?
So there's a lot. There's for everybody, whether you like to fish or hunt. There's gonna be all kind of vendors there. We'll be there. We have all our products from our great sponsors that'll be there, partners that do. Some of the big names in the outdoor industry, you got Gerald Swindle's going to be there, and you got Macy Watkins, who's a big female angler, a lot of people follow her. If you're not tracking, like in the outdoor industry, I mean, female presence in the outdoor industry is huge, such a huge explosion, and so having ambassadors like that and to get to go down and interact with those individuals is really, really cool. So they'll get to do that. We'll have a BB gun range there that kids can come in, and we'll work with them and teach them the proper techniques and how to shoot, because everybody's got a Red Ryder BB gun, so we'll be doing that stuff. And so just a lot of things to, if you're looking to get ready for upcoming, hunting season, or get some of the last minute fishing stuff for the fishing season, or just talk, there's going to be stuff for everybody. There's even RVs at the show, so you can buy a little bit of everything, and there'll even be outfitters there if you're looking to go do a trip for a hunting or fishing trip somewhere. So it's all kind of cool stuff going on.
Can you talk a little bit more about Gerald Swindle?
So everybody knows him as G-Man.
Yeah.
I mean, G-Man is just like, he's probably one of the most funniest guys in the outdoor industry. I mean, he can fish. There's no doubt about it. But he's a native Alabama guy. He's one of the hardest working guys I know in the outdoor industry. But he's probably one of the most humble guys in the outdoor industry. I still remember him coming to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and we were doing fishing for freedom up there, or Warriors on the Water up there, and coming and taking soldiers fishing and talking to him. But he will have some of the funniest stories, because he doesn't try to put on any airs for anybody. He tells what he's really feeling, how he kind of feels, and what it's like to really be out there fishing, and the struggles that he goes to. He'll talk about a positive mental attitude. I mean, his whole deal is wrapped around positive. If you have positive thoughts, if you keep your head going in the right direction. We always say in the military, where your mind goes, your body will follow, and that's really what he's getting at, that positive mental attitude. So he's just a lot of things you can take away from him. If you don't take anything else, you're going to definitely come away laughing, talking, listening to him.
He's a comedian.
Oh, I mean, he definitely a comedian, yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then Macy Watkins, can you talk a little bit about her background?
So, like, she's come along just as an ambassador to the sport. She, from a female side, she's more, you see a lot of the influencers on that side, and she's been kayak fishing, she hunts, you name it, and just a lot of the younger anglers, especially the female, love to identify with her. Because I always say this, it's really cool to have somebody like her, because female outdoors people want to just see people that look like them.
Yes.
And so she really fits that mold to be like, that could be me doing that. It's nobody, it's nothing. She doesn't do anything special other than just be herself. She's very humble and down, and so she loves to kayak fish. She's pretty funny too. If you ever listen to her talk, any of those things, it's all about caring. So there's a lot of stuff, and she knows what she's talking about. So that's really important. Not only that she's funny, but she knows what she's talking about. So she's really good about that.
She kind of checks off all the boxes there.
Yes. Yeah. I always say this: fish doesn't know whether you're a male or female out there. They have no idea, right?
Right.
So
that's right.
So they don't care. And so that's what's great about the outdoor industry. It can involve everybody, and it really gets the family involved. It's a family place to get the family together and connect.
What would you say, like, your favorite part of this event every year is?
My favorite part, me personally?
Yeah.
Just because I get to come home and see a lot of my friends, and it's time, like, I feel like, unlike anywhere else, I'm probably the most comfortable than I am when we go, because I know where everything's at. I know where we're staying at. I know it just seems, to me, it feels like home.
Right.
And I go a lot of places, and we're always on the road, and this one to me is a home atmosphere. A big part of it is I look forward to working with our partners at Frog Togs right here. They've been been an integral part of what we do on TV the last couple of years, and I've had a long relationship back with them since they first started in 1996. So it's great to get to represent them in your hometown and help them out along the way. So it's that hometown feeling for me is really what it's all about. I love that hometown connection.
That's right. And you mentioned Lake Gunnersville earlier, and another lake. What would you say your favorite lake here in the Tennessee Valley is to fish in?
Okay, so I get asked, not just here, but I get asked around the country what my favorite like. So it always comes back to Pickwick is probably my favorite. If everybody asks, could I go anywhere else in the country? It's Pickwick. Of course, I always love going to Gunnersville. I lost a double-digit bass there a couple of weeks ago.
Dang.
But I have a double-digit off of Pickwick.
Okay.
And so I get asked that question a lot as I travel around, and I say, if you ask me anywhere I could go in the country, and be here in North Alabama with Pickwick, because it's the only place I know that you can catch a world-class smallmouth, a double-digit largemouth, and a pretty nice spotted bass. Like that, and it's just a phenomenal fishery, and I have some very special moments there catching a double-digit bass. My oldest son's first fish there was a 5 1/4 smallmouth, which is, he was 2.5 years old when that happened.
Wow.
And so, but if you go anywhere, that's what's great about this area. Within an hour and a half, you have some of the greatest fisheries in the country. I mean, people would kill to have this set in their backyard. And I don't think the people of this area kind of understand how much or how blessed they are to have such a natural resource, from the Tennessee River down to Smith Lake, the Coosa River system. This whole area is just blessed to be just the abundance of fishery that they have here, and it just produces year after year and year after year. It's a blessing to have.
Right, and plus it's so beautiful.
It
up here
is
as well.
in the fall when the leaves change. There's nothing like being out there in the fall when the leaves change. I mean, the base of the Appalachian Plateau and all that comes down, and it's a beautiful waterway, and just it's such a great natural resource.